We're catching up with HR expert Jonathon Woolfrey. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, Anthony.
Now, the juggle begins, back to school and managing our work.
Yeah, for sure. And many people let out a big sigh of relief here because the kids start back at school across the state. But it does bring in some assistance in balancing work and life responsibilities, but it also brings into some extra challenges as we try and get into that groove. But we know that once the kids start going back to school, work's fully ramped up, then we're on a bit of a roller coaster for at least 40 weeks this year. And if we don't set it up correctly from the beginning, sometimes we blink and we're in panic stations and the year's gone past.
Okay, then what are some of the challenges you see from a HR perspective?
Well, they start to play out pretty simply in the beginning. The kids leave their lunch at home. We're a bit late because there was too much school traffic today. When it gets wet, we can't find parking spots. We get called up because the kid has needs to come home because they're sick, etc. So all these natural things start to happen. But then and all these things happen, it's life, but the ramifications start to build up in the workplace, such as, the impact on customers or clients or whatever the role is for that organisation. If there's not enough people at work to go on the checkouts, those lines get longer. And these build up and they get bigger over time. So, these little things of running late and things like that start to really creep into the workplace.
Do we just suck it up, or are there things that we can do to get the balance right?
Look, a lot of this is unpredictable, but I think, and as I alluded to in there earlier, it's more the build-up, in my experience anyway, working in HR, that creates the problems. People are a little bit flexible in regards to, people running late, having to duck off because the child is sick, etc. But when it's the 8th, 9th, 10th time, all in a row, people are sitting there looking back and observing it, is when it starts to happen. But what we can do is try and get that right at the beginning rather than when we're, already in the heat of the moment and when it is the 9th and 10th time and try and get that right. So there's a few things from a human resource industrial relations perspective that we might want to consider now. First of all, anyone covered under the national system, which is most of us, has a legal right to request flexible working arrangements, and employers have the responsibility to seriously consider these. And I think given what we've been through across the world over the last year, I think people are much more open to what that flexibility might look like. So have that conversation and look at embedding some of those flexible working arrangements. If you are doing the drop-off on one particular day, maybe that's the time you work from home or things like that. So try and embed those rather than work backwards and be looking at putting them in place once the issues have arisen. And then we also have a couple of things available to us in the workplace to help us deal with those things that come up. Various forms of leave, including carers leave that everyone has a right to when they need to look after their kids. And also there's anti-discrimination legislation helping protect people at work. So if they have caring responsibilities, if they have family responsibilities, they're prohibited from being discriminated against, being looked over for promotions, etc., because they do have these responsibilities. So I think if we actually try and get those things, have open and transparent conversations with our employers right from the beginning and try and put them in place before the issues arise, that's the time of the year to do that right now.
So what happens when things go wrong?
Look, again, if there's one thing we took away from last year is people are a little bit more understanding of these things going wrong, and it's been a little bit more visible for us. I remember last year or the year before, their videos go viral when a child or a pet or anyone comes into the background of a teleconference or a web conference, and now it's kind of par for the course. So yeah. I do think we start with some good empathy now these days. I think that's improved a lot. But when a person's running late for kid reasons, or when things customers aren't being served, or clients aren't getting their deadlines met, or we're struggling to dig holes in the ground, depending on what business we do, then an employer might start going, geez, this has really started to impact here. We might need to look at harsher disciplinary kind of processes and things like that. So if these things do build up and we do let them come into the workplace, then an employer may start to question whether or not you're producing in that role, whether or not you're pulling your weight against the other team and things like that. So there could be some, whilst we are protected for family reasons, if a person can't turn up to work on a regular basis for various reasons, then it's going to create some issues in the workplace. So again, it's normally the build-up. It's not normally the once-off things that people worry about. So again, getting that right now will probably prevent some of these things that can go wrong, and they could be quite significant if it's left to go on too long.
HR expert Jonathon Woolfrey, thanks for your time, and we'll chat again next week.
No worries at all, Anthony. My pleasure.